Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Online Warriors podcast. At last, at long last, we are all back together again. I am your friend, Illeagle 86, hopefully your friend, one of your three hosts of the Online Warriors podcast. I'm joined by my good friends Nerdbomber and Techtic. I don't know, I guess last week we were all kind of gone, so we re-aired something. The week before that I was gone, so you guys were heavy necking.
Woo, woo.
And now we're back, and it feels good to be back.
Baby, I'm back.
Still alive.
Or no, it's baby, come back.
Baby, I'm back. Well, baby, I'm back it worked.
It did.
Because we are back.
If I would have just said it with confidence, like just sang that note and just pretended that that was the right lyric, it would have worked.
It's times like this when I fear so much for our What Are You Up To Wednesday segment, because it's been a few weeks, and I also spent a good chunk of time like just kind of really diving into like books and movies and stuff, because I had a lot of free time. I had to travel for work, let me say that. And like when you travel for work for longer than a few days, you're spending a lot of time in hotel rooms. I became well acquainted with a hotel room, so that happened. Yeah, stayed in a hotel room, watched a bunch of Olympics. The Olympics, at this point, it's over. I feel like we kind of took an Olympic break because I feel like most of the time the Olympics were on, we were not on. It was not intentional.
It's actually because we're elite athletes and we were secretly competing at the Olympics. We had masks on. We had like prosthetics and everything. We had a good team to, mask us, but we were out there. We won gold.
Mm-hmm. That Australian breakdancer lady who everyone's talking about on the internet, that was actually Nerdbomber. Nerdbomber has been secretly Australian this entire time.
I am right. I can't do an accent. I'm sorry, that was horrible.
That was pretty good. She's been secretly Australian the whole time. She's been doing an American accent. I was the Turkish guy who... Did you guys see the Turkish guy? The guy who shot... Like, everyone has these crazy special glasses.
Oh, yeah, he just showed up. He was like, bam.
Just freeballing it. Respected the hell out of that. Techtic, you were the guy... I'm going to gas you up here a little bit. You were that guy who was so good at pole vaulting, but he lost because his penis was too big. And for those that don't know what I'm talking about, you need to be more on the internet than you are, because it took the internet by storm for like 24 hours. I was just talking about this with someone the other day about how the Olympics at this point, because of the internet and social media, it's kind of just this global phenomenon that takes place over like 2.5 to 3 weeks. And during that time, there are just the most insane, like 24 to 36 hour, like mini news cycles where like, oh, there was a shooting event and this Turkish guy who was probably a hitman just kind of like showed up and like looking schlubby and like kind of won the whole thing. And like, oh, there's an Italian guy whose penis is too big, so he lost at pole vault. Like, it's just like these mini little stories. There are many more that I'm not thinking of right now.
Also, the pommel horse guy. Yo, I love Pommel Horse Guy.
Pommel Horse Guy.
Yeah.
Huge deal. Steven something. Can't think of his last name right now, which is unfortunate for him.
I'd rather be him than the Paul Vault guy.
He had the whole like Clark Kent thing going on.
He was Peter Parker. Everyone keeps calling him Clark Kent. That's Peter Parker.
Well, no, because he like took the glasses off and he was like, let's go.
Took the glasses off. And he was sleeping on the sidelines for like the entire time, and then he got activated like a sleeper cell. Like they were like, all right, go do your pommel horse thing. Which, by the way, I watched it. And I know what you're thinking before I go on. Like, yes, this happened like 2 weeks ago. I don't care. We weren't here. We need to talk about this. Pommel horse is weird. And I'm sorry if you're out there and you're doing pommel horse. Like, how did we decide on pommel horse as a skill activity that we judge in the Olympics along with everything else? Like, how was it?
I mean,
how did it come about?
I think it's part of the whole like gymnastics thing. I remember in like
it's like all
elementary
around
school, they had like the pommel horse and you could try to do stuff, but you're in elementary school, so I don't know who they thought had the muscle to do that.
You can't do anything.
No.
Yeah.
But
I don't know, but why?
I was watching so on TikTok, they had like the Penn State, not Olympic team, the Penn State gymnastics team, and they were trying to replicate all of the stuff that they saw in the Olympics, and they tried his pommel horse technique.
I'm sure it's really hard. I'm not
I guess
devaluing. It's gotta be
so much time on like one hand and one wrist. That's what made it so difficult.
Yeah, I'm sure it's difficult. It's just for what is the idea that it's mimicking an actual horse, and like back in medieval times, there were folks like doing those sorts of things on horses, and someone was like, "Wow, that's really cool and you need to be very skillful to do it. We should make a whole sport." Like I don't,
that's
you know what I mean?
Probably where it came, because like the Olympics, aren't they all based in Greek or Roman times?
Like Greco-Roman stuff. So
and
like
I'm
maybe
sure
that is what it
like
is.
gladiators were not on horses, but like you had your horsemen, you had soldiers on horse, and I'm sure you had to be able to like jump from horse to horse, or at least all of the like crazy historical action movies, they show them always jumping from horse to horse. So like maybe they were doing some crazy stuff on horses, and they're like, hey, let's see who's the best at doing crazy stunts on horses.
Breakdancing probably over for the Olympics. Probably not coming back.
Oh no, that's confirmed.
They called it breaking too, which I don't know why they didn't call it breakdancing.
But yeah, I think it's confirmed that it's not coming back already for 2028.
It's just out. Next Olympics going to have flag football. That's already been confirmed. I guess every host nation like gets to put their own thing in, and France chose breakdancing for reasons that kind of escape me, and we chose flag football, which honestly tracks. So we'll see how that goes. I think as of this recording, it is completely over. I believe for the metalheads who are tracking all this stuff, I believe America and China tied for the most goals at 40 apiece, and America had significantly more like total medals overall. So like if you want to know who quote unquote won the Olympics, I guess it was America. But like also there's a million metrics. It's one of those things that like 538 and like sites like that can go absolutely nuts on like medals per capita, and like because America's a big country, and like I think actually like in terms of medals, pure medals per capita, which is also kind of a flawed metric, like if you look, it's like small Caribbean nations are like the most successful Olympic countries by a large margin. It's all very interesting, but it's over now. So I don't know, go practice pommel horse if you want to be in the next one, because well, actually don't. I mean, it feels like we kind of have that covered. So practice something else. Practice flag football. That would be a good use of your time and talents, potentially. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the things that came out of D23, because there were quite a few things. We've pared the list down to, I think there are 2 things from D23, and then we got another trailer last week that we wanted to run through as well. So 3 movie trailers this week, all for upcoming movies. We're going very movie heavy. Left on the cutting room floor, we had Moana 2, which, I'm going to be honest, I watched the trailer and I was like, okay, so it's just kind of Moana again, which like maybe that's drastically minimizing what it's going to be, but like it is going to be Moana again. Like The Rock is coming back, Ollie Cravalho is coming back, like it's the same thing. Incredibles 3 we didn't get a trailer, but it's being written right now, I believe is what the update was on that. I'm all for more Incredibles. That's no one asked, my opinion, but I think the mid-century modern vibe of The Incredibles combined with the talents of Pixar is incredible.
I have an Incredibles graphic tee with the Incredibles logo on it, and I basically busted out for like 1 year whenever an Incredibles movie comes out, which is not that often. So but I like, how like graphic tees, sometimes you put them in the wash and they don't always hold up. So like I want to hang on to it for the moment when it's called upon, and it'll be called upon.
I need to get back in the graphic tees game. That's neither here nor there comment, but I used to be big into the graphic tees, not so much anymore. I became an adult too hard, which is my fault. I shouldn't have done that. What else? The Incredibles 3 happened. What is the name of the Star Wars one? Skeleton Crew? Jude Law is a Jedi. It's like, did you guys watch the trailer for that? We're not going into detail on that one, but it's basically the Goonies, but Star Wars version, and Jude Law is a Jedi. That's kind of, if I had to summarize it in one sentence, that's what it looks like it's going to be. It is the latest Star Wars property in which I've been like, why did you put a Jedi in it? You didn't have to do that. Like, they put a whole trailer out, and then at the end they were like, don't worry, there's still a Jedi. And I'm like, you don't have to have a Jedi in everything. That is not a requirement. Like, God,
it's starting to feel like it is, though. Like, it's starting to feel like if it's Star Wars, so. There's a Jedi, that's it. Hard stop.
Like, Andor is like one of the only things I can think of that doesn't have a Jedi in it, and wow, look, it was really successful. Like, I just don't.
What's interesting about having all these random pockets of Jedi is like it was all kind of based on the fact that
Order 66.
Yeah. Yes. Was there like how ineffective was Order 66? We're like, oh yeah, we forgot to look under this rock right here, the Jedi.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Skeleton Crew was supposed to take place again in a time period where like the Jedi are like kind of coming back, but like it's a very hard thing to sell narratively because Jude Law is like 50-something years old. So like if it's happening between, Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens, which is when a lot of this stuff does happen, it's like, all right, he would have been alive during Order 66. So like, how do you, like you said, how do you explain that?
Maybe he became a Jedi late in life. Maybe he had like a midlife crisis and he's like, yo man, it's time.
Some people get Corvettes. Some people Follow the Force.
Become Jedi.
I will say though, like Jude Law as a whole has been underutilized in the movie realm.
Love Jude Law.
Like Jude Law is great.
Love Jude Law so much, and I agree completely. He's great in everything he's in. I'm just a huge fan of his. But like, just make the core idea of it, which again looks like it's like the Goonies but Star Wars. Like I was like, that's a good idea. Just do that. That would be okay. And they were like, yeah, but what about putting a Jedi in it? Like they just can't resist. It seems like, and I'll never understand that. Anyways, I digress. Let's digress. Let's just gress. Let's gress. And let's talk about Mufasa to start.
Okay, I have thoughts. Do your intro, but
You've
then I have thoughts.
I mean, my intro is going to be very short. This movie is coming December 20th, 2024. This is the live action, quote unquote, live action Lion King. And by live action, I mean it's not live action, but it's the photorealistic animation, same as the 2019 Lion King. It's telling a prequel story about how Mufasa came to be Mufasa, ostensibly. I know what people are expecting. And to some extent, they're going to get it from me, which is that I'm a curmudgeon and I don't love this. That said, and my wife said this, and I totally agree when we watched the trailer. She said, if this would have been just animated regular style, I would have been so much more interested because I think the story, the kernel of the story is very worthwhile here, but I don't know. I don't know what that makes me. Does it make me a purist to like want it to go back to the old animation style? Which, by the way, you're going to hear me say the same exact thing when we talk about Snow White. Like, I think these are. Well, let's get to Snow White later. I'll turn it over to you to talk about Mufasa. That's my general thought on Mufasa. I did not see the 2019 movie. I mean, I know the story of the Lion King, obviously, but that's kind of my.
So one of your biggest beefs with all of these live action or photorealistic remakes is that they are exactly that, remakes. Like I feel like I remember you.
Sure.
I can almost hear your voice in my head saying that didn't need to exist.
Yeah, you're hearing correctly. That is, and that's how I feel about Snow White. Again, spoiler alert for the topic later. Like, these never need to happen. This is taking a step away from that, and that's what you're about to say. Which
Right.
Is that, like, this is an original story, which that's why I'm slightly more on board with this.
And
I just wish it was just animated. Like
the
I don't
lore
know.
too, like the original Lion King lore has never posed Mufasa as not blood related to Scar. Like they've always been blood related brothers up until this point. So this is like a departure from all of the Lion King lore that we know. First of all, so like to touch on the animation first and foremost, I think the CGI does look a lot better this time around. Like something about the lion movement, like it looks better than what we got in the original Lion King remake. So I'll throw that out there. I think from a visual standpoint, I was more impressed by this than I was the last time that they did a Lion King property. Sure. Moving about the story though, this changes everything in my mind. Like this is like one of those like mind-blowing moments because you're brought up to think that Scar, like if you grew up on the original Lion King movies, you think Scar is just a jealous POS who wants to take down his brother, do some fratricide, and take over the kingdom. But Scar was always supposed to be the king now, and Mufasa just kind of strolls in as this orphan that takes for how we don't know how it happens. We don't really see how it happens, but in this trailer, like Scar loves Mufasa. Well, Scar is not called Scar yet, but like he loves Mufasa. He's stoked to have a brother. They're pals. They're going on adventures together. They're teaming up together. I can't wait to see how this relationship dissolves. I can't, like, this also makes Scar look like maybe he was the good guy all along and maybe Mufasa's going to turn out to be like a dick who came in and took over the Badlands and like it was supposed to be Scar's rightful territory. I feel like they're going to make it a little more ambiguous. It's not going to be that.
It dissolves.
Go on.
Well, it's going to become where ultimate power corrupts ultimately and Mufasa is going to step in and be the rightful person. That's what's going to happen. It's going to show that you could start good, and then when given power to the wrong person, they're going to go bad.
Scar is going to wind up as the bad guy at the end of this. I guarantee. Like I think most of what you said, Nerdbomber, is right. Where like I think this does sweeten the narrative pot a little bit, you know, and like it also provides the like there's no doubt the climax of this movie is going to be however Scar gets his scar. I would assume, unless I'm not remembering, and we already know that from something. Like I assume that's where this movie is going to really peak. So like there's going to be some crazy fallout, like inciting incident for the next movie maybe, but like
Mufasa's
there's going to be some
give
kind
him
of
a
big
scar.
event that happens. So you think Mufasa's going to just like straight up scratch him? I don't know if that's.
I
don't think
think
it's-
Mufasa is going to show mercy with this rival lion gang, and Scar is going to be like, "No, we need to take them down, or else they're going to attack us." And then Mufasa is going to turn on him, and there's going to be a falling out. That's what I think is going to happen. But
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely going to be like. I don't think we're going to get all the, because Nerdbomber, you were making it sound like we're going to get all the way to like quote unquote Scar was right. I don't think we're ever going to get.
No,
to that
I don't
point.
think we're gonna get.
But I
Scar
do
was
think
right.
it's going to.
But it's gonna introduce some like moral ambiguity, so that Scar's not just this evil figure. Because I mean, do you guys remember in the original animated movie when Be Prepared, the song comes on and it's like this really dark, it's in the elephant graveyard, he's got all his hyenas, it's like black and green and very like dark. And like
prepared.
right. And like you're supposed to take away from that, Scar is just a bad dude. But like I enjoy having my villains be a little bit more morally ambiguous.
Scar's
And,
not bad. He's calculated. That's different. He sees that.
I mean, he betrays his brother ultimately in The Lion King. Like he's kind of a bad guy.
Yeah, you can be both calculating and bad, and I
Like,
think he is ultimately bad. I
he straight
haven't
up, like,
seen the
kills
first movie in
Mufasa.
forever.
You should watch it. It holds
Yeah.
up. But like just having
sure
a
it
little
does.
bit more moral ambiguity where for our eyes and for the outside viewer, like obviously, yes, Mufasa, Simba, that entire lineage, like they are going to still come out to be like the good guys at the end. But to be able to be like, oh, well, I could kind of see though from Scar's perspective that he has these motives and maybe he feels wronged or maybe he feels like he was betrayed initially. So like he maybe isn't completely all bad. Like he's still a bad guy because his actions sucked, but like his motives, like he had a bad shake in life or something like that. I don't know. I kind of prefer giving that little bit of a flavor to a villain.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever heard of the show Wicked?
Exactly. This
just-
is like kind of, I'm not going to, maybe this is Wicked.
This is Wicked.
Oh, okay.
But
Have we?
but
Yeah,
here's
go
the
ahead.
thing. This isn't new. In his like cartoon storyline, he was, like I said in a previous episode, he was the Lion Guard. He was good. Him and Mufasa had a good relationship, and then it went south.
Right, but I think the departure here, and I think what's going to introduce an interesting element is I believe in the Lion Guard, and I don't remember, you actually know more of this lore than I do. You dove into this series a lot more than I did, but I believe they were still blood brothers. So I
They
feel
were,
like
yeah.
introducing the orphan aspect and the fact that he maybe was not rightfully the bloodline heir to the throne introduces an interesting element.
And I think that fact that they were blood brothers is why they're doing this departure, so that they can ultimately do another movie and not be like, wait a minute, isn't Kovu the heir of
Yes.
Scar? And that's kind of incestuous.
Yeah, I think this is how they
That's
also
why
give
I think
us
they're doing this. I think
Lion
they're
King
fixing
too.
that weird like inbreeding situation that was happening.
Do you guys? Let me just
Kovu was
pose a
hot.
question.
Yo, you need to chill.
I think jeez, I think I know what your answer is going to be, but I'm curious. And let's retroactively apply to the Lion King 2019. Do you think? Well, I guess let me cut to the chase. I don't want this photorealistic thing. I never wanted it. I want more animated stuff. I want the classic animation style to come back, or at least to stay alive. Is there a chance of that ever coming back in the context of the Lion King? The answer is probably no, right?
I don't think in
like
the
it
Lion
seems like
King.
the answer is no.
Well, so if you
I
look
find
back,
that deeply unfortunate.
it is sad, but I think from the way that Disney is structured now, all of their classics are going to go more into this live action format, and anything new is going to be their animated offering. And I think especially too with The Lion King and a lot of the older classics, why it's difficult to expand upon those universes in the traditional animated style is because they already did that. If you go back to like the 80s and the 90s, they already did a lot of sequels to your favorite franchises, but they were direct to VHS back when that was like the hot commodity. So I
Right.
don't want to say that they shot themselves in the foot, but like you can't continue the franchises because a lot of people didn't see those direct to VHS movies. So unless you retcon everything that
that's
came
the
out,
thing.
like it's kind of tough. And
I
like
don't
they
know that I'm
often were
saying
like
continue
lower
the franchises.
budget.
Like that's the tricky thing. I don't know that I'm saying continue the franchises. I just like I really do think that like, and also I think it's also a question of expense. I would imagine that the other animation style is probably more expensive. It's hard for me to imagine that looking at this photorealistic stuff, but like I'm sure that's playing a role in what they decide. I have a hard time believing, like, I actually think that if the old animation style was revisited in some interesting way that created a new story, I think it might be more popular, especially with our generation. Like, I know a lot of people. I don't think you guys are necessarily in this group of people, but I know a lot of people who, like, kind of just spurn the new Lion King because they're like, they don't want that. Like, they don't want like, I have a harder time personally suspending my disbelief. If there is a cartoon lion singing to another cartoon lion, I can get myself on board. If there is a lion that just looks straight up like a lion singing to another lion, and they're both just lions, there's so much more bigger part of me being like, what am I doing here? And like that, again, as we've talked about many times on this show, that's probably a me problem, but I don't think I'm the only one that has it. And like, that's I think this is a much better idea than other ones that we've talked about in the past with Disney. Like, I think this is an interesting story, but I don't want the photorealistic stuff.
I think too, they're trying to gear these towards an adult audience. And I think they might be under the misconception that adults don't watch animated movies.
I think that's actually backfiring. Like, I think that people in my generation like feel the way. I think there's a good chunk that feel the way that I feel, that they're like, actually, no, just give me something that looks like the original Lion King, and I'm actually probably gonna be more interested. Like, I think with Aladdin, that almost certainly was the case. I think Aladdin is another example of like, people are like, why is this live action? This is dumb. Like, I get why they're doing what they're doing, and like, I think for the new generations and the younger audiences, it's absolutely working. But yeah, I guess you kind of put it well. Like, if their purpose with the live action shift is to get me more interested, it's absolutely backfiring.
But it might not be geared towards you. Like, it might be geared towards people our parents' age who took us to the movies to see the animated version, and now they're like, hey, well, I went then and saw it on Broadway and it was pretty sweet. Let me go see a different adult adaptation of this movie.
Well, let's let this transition us into Snow White, because this is the other big, I guess you would say, tentpole coming out of D23, and like, this is just the latest. It's not a sequel. This is a much more traditional. It's the same thing they did with Lion King, same thing they did with Aladdin, Little Mermaid. I could go on and on. Where they have Rachel Zegler, who's like relatively hot coming off of the Hunger Games sequel and West Side Story, and now she is Snow White in a live action and adaptation with Gal Gadot as the evil queen. The big thing here that I think we talked about on the show a long time ago is that they didn't get any live action actors to portray the dwarves. The dwarves were completely CGI.
I think that was because of Peter
we can
Dinklage,
get into that.
Right?
It was. That's what we talked on the show. We talked about Peter Dinklage. The phraseology I've seen used around the internet as this trailer's come out is he pulled the ladder up behind him, where basically because he's been very successful and he kind of just, I think, wanted to be the only little person who could do this stuff. I that's maybe not being fair to Peter.
But he's not playing a little. But like, besides Game of Thrones, like, he doesn't really play a little person. Well, he plays a person.
Sure, but I think that's still, he pushed back on the idea of using like actual people in this. I don't know if we ever got the full story on why that was, but getting into the trailer and what it is, like, yeah, this is the same thing as the rest of them, and this is like, Mufasa I can live with because it's telling a different story. It's, it's trying to do different things. This is just the same bullcrap we've been doing, and like, again, they're going to keep doing.
Can I ask a question? Even the cartoon
Sure.
Snow White, did you guys care about this one? Like, as far as Disney princesses go?
Not so much.
I mean, Snow White is big. So I was never really a big Disney princess girl until they started rolling in some of the ones that weren't initially princesses. Like,
but
I don't think
you're straight up a Belle girl.
I like Belle now as an adult, but as a kid, I was just like, why doesn't she just like run away? I was very confused by the whole, like, I liked Beauty and the Beast, but I was also very confused. Like, I didn't understand the idea that she was like a prisoner. I didn't get it. I understand it now, like I said, growing up, but like when you're like 3 and you're watching it, I was just like, well, why doesn't she just run away? But
I believe Snow White is...
Pocahontas was like my jam.
Oh, Pocahontas is great. And I'm sure that one's coming at some point. Snow White is, I believe, the OG. I think she is the original Disney princess.
I thought
like
it was
the first one.
No. Who's the... The blonde one, whose name I can't.
Cinderella.
Not Cinderella. The other one, Aurora. I don't know what movie she's in. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, Sleeping Beauty?
Yes, Sleeping Beauty, I think, was the OG. Okay, we need to fact check this right now.
I don't think so. I'm trying to look into it. I'm like 90% sure. It's the
no, Snow White was the first Disney princess.
Yeah. First animated feature film produced in the United States. So like feels like a pretty I did think it was her. So this is kind of a watershed moment for Disney, right? Like they're taking their first one ever and they're live actionifying it. I mean, let me be as clear as I can be here. Like they're doing everything right in the sense that like they got Greta Gerwig to write it. They have Mark Webb directing it, both very successful people in the industry. They have Rachel Zegler fronting it. Gal Gadot, I have some issues with, but like she's also very popular in her own right, so like it's reasonable. It's gonna be soulless. It's gonna make $1 billion. Like it's gonna do exactly what they want it to do. Same with Mufasa, for what it's worth. Like the reason they're doing this is that they're gonna make so much money. And again, like they're not for me. But that's just it. They're not for me. This is not for me. So why would I see it? I don't know. Do you guys have any differing opinion? Like, I guess, how does this one stack up for you guys relative to existing live action?
I will probably see this when it comes to Disney Plus based on the goodwill that Rachel Zegler has, or Zegler, however her name is pronounced.
However, I couldn't say, honestly.
But based on the goodwill that she got from me after the Hunger Games. She blew me away in that. I hadn't really seen her in a lot of other things. I knew there was a lot of blowback around her casting of Snow White because she said she didn't really like know much about the character or something back in the day. I don't care about, like, she doesn't need to be the biggest Snow White lover to do a good job and play the character super well. And just based off her singing chops, the acting that I saw in A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, like, I'm going to watch it for her because I think she'll be a good Snow White. That said, like, I'm not running to the theaters for this like I will be Mufasa.
Yeah, I mean, it could also be a function of what Techtic said, right? Which is like, do any of us care much about this actual story?
Well,
like,
that's mainly my
like
question.
the dwarves, like, hi ho, like, that's fine. But like, that's like probably gonna be like 10 minutes of the movie. And the rest of the movie, I'm like, I don't really care about the story that much.
There's other
the others.
IPs that they just haven't touched yet that are so much better. Like I'm glad you brought up Pocahontas because that should be the next one. It really should.
Pocahontas, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say they probably don't want to wade into the potential firestorm on that one.
Yeah, I don't think that'll ever get
has
touched.
so much. It's possible it'll never get made. Like, don't get me wrong, I agree with you completely. I think it's a far better story. My guess is they're not going to touch that one with a 10-foot pole, at least not anytime soon. There are plenty of other ones though. I agree that like Snow White is like, this is one of those ones too that like. Maybe they'll zhuzh it up a little bit, but it's probably like a pretty dated story. Like, I think it's, I don't know. I don't want to speculate because I don't really remember much about it other than that the dwarves, hi ho, off to work they go. And like, I don't remember much else about it. There's this one's the one with the poisoned apple that she eats, which we see in the trailer. Like, like this is for someone to take their child to see. That is what this is for. I can't imagine any other argument for this one being made. Aladdin, like, I actually feel like Aladdin probably had the single biggest justification out of all of these live action ones. Maybe all of them, yeah. I just think that one had the most potential. I think this one has very limited potential to like actually be all that interesting, if that makes sense. So, also the budget was $209 million. That's a crime to me. Like, why are we doing this? That's so much money. You could make so many movies with that money that are not this. I'm just a broken record at this point. This movie's coming out March 21st, 2025. If you're a Disney head, go see it. If you have kids, probably go see it. Because, like, again, kids will love this. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. Children will see this and go crazy. But we don't have kids. You guys don't have kids, right?
No.
Not
You
that I'm
guys
aware
had
of.
kids since... Okay. I also do not have kids, so... Maybe I'll watch this on Disney Plus at some point, like you said. I think for me, that's especially unlikely, but it sounds like for you, if only because of the draw of Rachel Zegler, maybe you'll check it out. This trailer was also like a minute and a half, so it kind of just like did the Disney trailer thing where like it played one of the songs from the original at like a different pace and like kind of eerily, and like that was kind of the whole gist. So again, this is just kind of the same thing that they've been doing with the last few, so you kind of know what you're going to get. We'll take a short break now before coming back to talk about the different movie, the one that was not in D23, the one about Saturday Night Live. So we'll get to that. Before we do, and before we go to our break, I would be remiss. It's been a few weeks since I've said that. I would be remiss if I did not shout out our fantastic Patreon producer, Mr. Stephen Keller. I don't say the phrase "I would be remiss" very often in my daily life. It's pretty much just here. I kind of just save it for this circumstance. So I would be remiss if I did not thank our fantastic producer, Mr. Stephen Keller. Stephen's been supporting us on the show here for quite a while. He's been supporting us on our Patreon at the highest of our 3 levels, which is the night level, which gets him access to the monthly secret segment and vlog, of course, but also this producer shout out every episode, the occasional guest spot on the show, input into our weekly game segment, and just props from us at all times. There is also a Squire level of support, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment and vlog, and a page level, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment. So you can head over to patreon.com/online warriors podcast. Check out the deets there. Deets is short for details. So you get more details over there. Again, that's patreon.com/online warriors podcast. Say hi to us. Say hi to Steven. Consider giving back to the show. This show that you're hopefully enjoying listening to. So again, that's patreon.com/online warriors podcast. Thanks again to Steven. We'll be right back to talk about Saturday night.
Welcome aboard Too Vague Airlines. We're cruising here at 40,000 feet. That might be too many feet, but what do I know? I'm not really an airplane. I'm a podcaster. Actually, I'm a co-podcaster. I'm the co-host of several episodes of the Too Vague podcast. If you haven't heard it, you're missing out. Check out the Too Vague podcast. Any place podcasts do whatever they do.
Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has turned off the fasten seatbelt sign. For your continued safety, Too Vague Airlines requires that you keep your seatbelt fastened at all times while seated. But while you're seated, you can tune into the Too Vague podcast, TWOVAGUE, on your favorite podcast services and enjoy the flight.
All right, we are back to talk about Saturday night. Not just like what happened Saturday night, because that was a night that recently happened. But no, this is a movie coming October 11th, 2024. It's about the beginning of Saturday Night Live. So the idea, the designing principle of this movie, according to the trailer, is it takes place during the 90 minutes directly preceding the air of the first episode of Saturday Night Live. Now, let me just start by saying an absolute fumble on the trailer, on the title of this movie. Why would you not call this Live from New York or something? Saturday Night's a terrible name for this.
You think?
I just want to get that out of the... I really do. I want to get that out of the way to start with. I think there's like a million better names for this.
But I think the point of the name was that this is the proceedings before Saturday Night went live.
Plus, if they change the name, you know it's going to be bad.
Well, you're right. I'm not saying change the name now.
He's
It's too
quoting
late.
you.
I'm quoting you.
I'm aware. I'm aware of what he's doing. I stand by that opinion, by the way. But no, I think it could be called a few different things that are better. But without dwelling on that, to some people would argue trivial detail. Can we talk about like what is your guys' relationship with Saturday Night Live? Because like I will say that my relationship with it is pedestrian. Like I'm not a huge Saturday Night Live fan. I never really have been. I think Saturday Night Live, especially now, has kind of, save for very brief flashes, has kind of exited the public eye in a pretty significant way relative to what it used to be. So like, I'm sure there's an interesting story here.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. I will say I don't necessarily also watch Saturday Night Live all that often. I think I've dabbled. If it's on, I'll say, hey, what's on? Or I believe it used to be like if there was a Saturday night New Year's Eve, they would delay it and they would play it after. I think I might be wrong here, like after the ball drop.
Possibly. I have no idea.
I would
Good
feel
question.
all like scandalous because my parents would fall asleep and I'd get to watch it. But you can't deny that Saturday Night Live has had a massive impact on the world of comedy and even entertainment as a whole. I think this is a very interesting story because so many comedians and actors have spawned off of Saturday Night Live, either this direct original cast or, by being connected to them. Even like the 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon effect. Like, I feel like for Saturday Night Live, it's maybe 2 degrees of separation at most. I feel like most comedians that have become really big publicly, they've sort of orbited the Saturday Night Live cast. Either they've been on it, or they know a cast member, or they've worked with a cast member even tertiarily. And I feel like it has had such a big impact that it's kind of crazy that it hasn't had an origin movie
Did
yet.
you guys know that there's a national comedy museum, like nationally in the States, to recognize all these people? And in that museum, there's a thing that links every single comedian, and it shows like who's related to what and how they're related, and you can trace everything back to Saturday Night Live in this exhibit.
I mean, there's no doubt that Saturday Night Live is an institution, right? Like I'm not minimizing its broader impact on comedy at large. I'm just saying that I think in 2024, you cannot deny that it has less cachet than it did in like even the 90s. Like, I think it was just so much more of I think it's mostly because society has changed. I'm not saying the product itself has gotten any worse. I think the lead up to it is going to have to be like this is going to be a very interesting movie, because I'm sure getting it made, it was probably a pretty radical idea at the time. I'm sure that's what this is mostly going to be about, is that doing a live sketch show at this scale with this many funny people, like, first of all, you have a billion big personalities in the room, and second of all, it had to be a pretty outlandish idea at the time. And also, I'm looking, the show was originally called Saturday Night Live. It was originally called Saturday Night. They didn't tack the live on until later, so that's why the movie is called Saturday Night, which I guess makes sense and gives it a little bit more of a reasoning. So it takes place in 1975, which is when the first episode aired. We can see some pretty, I mean, obviously no one's playing themselves here, but we can see some fairly recognizable people. The one who sticks out the most to me is probably Chevy Chase.
That casting, by the way, fantastic.
He's pretty good, yeah. Chevy Chase, for those that don't know, kind of very publicly just like a dick. And I actually feel like that comes off a little bit in the trailer, so good for the trailer. I don't think anyone who's worked with Chevy Chase actually likes him. Shout out Chevy Chase. I don't know if you're a listener, but that's just what I've heard.
You just wounded his ego. But yeah, isn't he like, I was a big Community fan, and I feel like when they were, because they did the additional seasons on like Hulu, right? Or did they start on Hulu? I don't remember.
I think it was on, at one point it was on Yahoo, I believe.
That's
like
what it was.
Somewhere weird. Yeah.
And like, I just remember they didn't love him. And like, they never really talked disparagingly, I don't think, directly about him, but they like kind of skirted around the fact that they didn't like him that much.
Yeah, they were super happy when he was off the show. Like, and I think that was like borderline public. But anyways, Nicholas Braun from Succession, who I love, plays Jim Henson, which I think is actually incredible. Dylan O'Brien playing Dan Aykroyd, Matthew Rhys playing George Carlin. There's a lot of people that are doing that sort of thing, playing someone previously famous. Lamorne Morris playing Garrett Morris, who I actually have no idea who that is, unfortunately. But I do like Lamorne Morris. Willem Dafoe is in this, J.K. Simmons. A lot of star power. I believe either written and directed by Jason Reitman, who is, again, kind of a big deal director. I think there's probably no way this isn't good. It's just a matter of, is the story interesting enough?
It's gonna be.
I do think it probably is. Again, so many big personalities. Like, I'm kind of wondering, was this during the Jim Belushi era of...
It was.
John Belushi. My goodness. Yes, it was. So John Belushi is in this. Finn Wolfhard is in it, which I don't think he's playing. It sounds like he's not playing anyone famous. And also, I should clarify, Nicholas Braun is playing Jim Henson and Andy Kaufman. So he's actually playing two people in this movie, which is also, I think, very interesting. Especially Andy Kaufman, who's a very interesting person. Billy Crystal is being played by someone. So basically just a bunch of comedians are just showing up here. Gilda Radner. I don't know much about Lorne Michaels. I know obviously he's a very big deal because he kind of started a bunch of comedians' careers, as we've said. I don't know that the trailer was very good. I will say that. I don't know.
I think they're trying to portray it. So I think they don't want this to be like your standard biopic. I think they're trying to portray like a sense of urgency, both in the movie and then in the trailer. And I think they do a decent job of that. Like, I think from what I read, this movie is going to focus, like you said, like the very lead up to the first episode. And kind of, they want to have like a thriller bent to it. Not like obviously like slasher horror stuff, but more just like a high stakes feel to the movie. And I think the trailer does get that across.
Yeah, there's like the ticking clock sound throughout the whole thing, so it's trying to ratchet up some kind of intensity. Yeah, I think this could be one of those movies too that like comes out of nowhere and wins a few Oscars. I'm not sure anyone's expecting that of it at this exact moment, but I think it could certainly happen. So yeah, I'm interested. And it comes out October 11th, so it's easily the thing with the shortest lead time of all the trailers we talked about today. So if you're particularly excited for this one, you won't have to wait super long. That brings us into What Are You Up To Wednesday. This is the part of the show where we talk about what we've been up to. And as I mentioned, this is going to be jam-packed. It's been a minute for all of us. Nerdbomber, I'm going to roll out the red carpet for you, because I want to. So you will go first. And please regale us with the tales of your past couple of weeks.
All right, so we watched a lot of movies, first of all. And one is a Netflix movie I want to talk about. And one is a movie that's out in theaters right now that you touched on a little bit about a couple weeks ago in our last episode when we were all together. But the Netflix movie that we watched was A Family Affair. And this is the Joey King, Nicole Kidman, Zac Efron movie.
Oh, God.
Did
my
you watch
wife,
this?
I believe my wife turned it on and then fell asleep. She, by the way, she's like the biggest Nicole Kidman fan this side of the world, and she couldn't even do it. I'm curious to see what you.
Okay, so the premise of this movie is that Joey King is Zac Efron, who is a movie star's personal assistant / he promised her like she would eventually become like a producer in his company, and like it's very unclear if he owns the production company, but he's doing a lot of like kitschy superhero-esque movies, and he's portrayed as this like very high maintenance dramatic actor personality. Then they have a falling out. She quits. He goes to her house where he meets her mother, and then they start dating and having a little bit of an affair, and they all kind of butt heads because she goes back to work for him, but he's obviously banging her mom. So all of the hilarity and drama that ensues is surrounding that situation. And I thought it was better than I was expecting. I'm not going to lie. Like, you have to go into this not assuming it's going to be very good. But we all know that there's a drought when it comes to like rom-coms and even comedies in general. And there were enough like weird one-line zingers in this movie, specifically from like Zac Efron and Joey King, that I thought were relatively funny. Now, the romance between Zac Efron and Nicole Kidman, I don't know if I necessarily bought. Nicole Kidman, no shade here, but like the kissing felt weird. Like something was very stiff and off about it, specifically from like her end. And like that didn't really work for me. But like it kind of.
I mean, both their faces are plastic surgery.
You're not wrong.
So like.
There was not a lot of movement going on.
Plastic surgery to death, I might.
But I don't know. I thought it was funny and entertaining enough for what I wanted out of this Netflix movie. Like, it is what it is. Like, you're not expecting it to be the best thing in the world. And I think we live in this world now where everyone expects every movie to like be a home run hitter. But do you remember all of the bad rom-coms in the 90s that weren't very good, but nobody cared? They had hot people in them. They had some funny one-liners. You watched it. You felt good at the end of the movie. And then you went home. And that's all I wanted from this movie, and that's exactly what I got. Now, would I recommend it from the rooftops? Probably not. But like, it was average.
I have to I'm sorry, because you do this all the time, so I just have to do this to you. 35% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay, what's the audience say?
You're about to tell me, look at the audience score. The audience score is 30. So people did not like this movie. Like, objectively, this one did not work out. So you are in the minority. Even remotely recommending it. I'm trying to remember if I fell asleep watching this movie, because I think it's possible. I don't remember. One of us or both of us fell asleep watching this movie.
I will say,
which we're sleepy people.
We hadn't watched TV for quite a long time before watching this movie, so maybe we forgot what entertainment was like.
Also, I hope Zac Efron's okay. Did you guys hear what happened to him? He like jumped in a pool and like hurt his head. The dude's got so much going on in his life.
Did he really?
He just needs to. Yeah, he was in like Spain. I don't know. I haven't heard the update. I believe he's like out of the hospital and fine, but he was like in the hospital.
Yeah, he's hospitalized. Yikes. Well, I hope he's okay. That's wild.
Hope you're all right, Zach. Hang in there. We're thinking of you. Also, this movie I don't think was very good, but Nerdbomber and Techtic liked it.
Look. Okay,
you got someone in your corner.
I'm not saying this was a good movie, but I'm saying that it did what I wanted it to do at the time. Did I want to see him make out with Nicole Kidman?
Yes.
No. The other parts of the movie, though, like I actually thought Zac Efron and Joey King's relationship, and not in like a sexual manner, like their platonic relationship, was what I like was invested in that movie. The relationship between him and Nicole Kidman, I could have completely done without. Like if they cut that part out and they just made it about high maintenance movie star and his assistant / producer, I think that would have played a lot better, to be honest. Like remove the Nicole Kidman part and then it's better. But hey, I don't know. Whatever.
Let me offer, I don't have a horse in this race, but let me just offer one additional counterpoint that I do think is true. If you want to make a rom-com, power to you. If you want to make a rom-com that doesn't have a lot of good writing, meat on its bones, as the reviews suggest, also fine. It cannot be 1 hour and 51 minutes long. It needs to be 20 minutes shorter, or else people are going to turn on it, which I think is probably what happened in this case. You gotta tighten it up. That's just a word to all the potential rom-com writers out there. 1 hour 51 minutes for a rom-com is, I would say, unacceptable unless it's very good.
But you know what was tight?
Anyways,
freaking Twisters. Probably the best
Twisters
movie.
ruled.
And I can't remember what other movies we've seen in 2024, but I'm going to make a bold statement and say this is the best movie that I've seen all year. Fantastic. Loved it. A+.
Shout
10
out
out of
Twister.
10.
I'm back.
So
man.
good.
I'm so back in. It's everything. We were talking about this before we went to air. It's everything you want it to be. It knows what it needs to deliver, and it just delivers. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's 10 out of 10.
Literally,
so I'm glad you agreed.
I think my favorite part of this movie, and I don't want to give any spoilers away because this is a relatively new movie still, and it's still in theaters, I believe. But I think one of my favorite things, and I haven't watched the original Twister in a while, and Techtic and I were talking about this after the movie ended. But like,
you should watch it. It's so good.
The original Twister, though, they were just out like, yeehaw, let's chase some tornadoes. I don't remember them having like a real purpose other than like, let's chase tornadoes and study them.
No, they did.
Did they?
They did.
What was the purpose?
Dorothy. Like, you got to watch the first. You got to watch the first movie, guys. It's actually, the purpose is very similar to what the purpose of Twisters is. They're like doing an experiment, like a very specific experiment to like try to better analyze tornadoes. And they have this thing called Dorothy that has those little balls in it. Remember, I think it's in the very beginning. They have the thing with little balls in it.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's how it ties back. Okay. All right.
That's a total throwback to the first one. So you just watch the first one. It's really good.
Well, I was gonna say like it felt like everybody had a purpose for the most part. Everybody in this movie had a purpose and a reason for being by the tornadoes. The soundtrack was really good. I thought they had a lot of stars on the soundtrack. I don't even really listen to country music, but they had a lot of stars. I also liked the angle, like the romantic angle that they did or did not take. Just so good. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, it's so good. You should see it in theaters too. Recommend. It's one of. There aren't many movies that come out that aren't Marvel movies that demand a theater experience these days, and this is one of them. Theater, drive-in, whatever you want to do, but like see it on a big screen because it is worth it to have it in that experience. Also, shout out to the journalist guy. Love that guy. 10 out of 10. This movie's amazing. So glad you saw it.
Me too. And then I'll bounce over to Techtic because he was the other half of my movie-going adventure. So
We also watched Deadpool and Wolverine, and I gotta say, this was the best Deadpool in the franchise. The first one was good. The second one I found to be incredibly forgettable, and then this one was just put a bow on it. It's fantastic. It was very fan servicey, so there was a lot of other like characters and that have like cameoed in, and that was fun. But really, it was just, I thought it was a well put together story, even with the multiverse nonsense going on, and the comedy was perfectly balanced Deadpool comedy. There was some parts where I think they could have done a little bit more talking to, because people who aren't familiar with the comics won't really know. It's not really a spoiler, I guess, what the Deadpool corps are, but like I wish they explained that more. But other than that, I thought it was a solid movie, and hopefully a really good way to put a bow on the Deadpool franchise.
The raunchiness has to have been cut back. I mean, I haven't seen it. Can you speak to that at all?
So that's
they have
kind
to
of.
have cut
I
it
thought
back.
2 was over the top. They didn't have a good balance. I think this one was hit the right balance that 1 had.
See, I actually, and I was
It was a
gonna say,
lot more.
I-
It was a lot more humor on how hot Hugh Jackman is as far as raunchy comedy. Like it wasn't over the top. It was just, hey, look how hot Hugh Jackman is, and it was kind of on repeat. Which like
the
I'm
raunchiness
here for that.
the raunchiness is one element. I wanted to push back. You said Deadpool 2 you thought was forgettable. I actually really like Deadpool 2. I think it's great. I don't know if it's
three
as
were
good as
but
1,
within the 3, it was the more forgettable one.
That's probably fair. I will probably see Deadpool and Wolverine at some point. I almost saw it in theaters, and then I decided not to. So at some point, I'm sure I'll watch it, and I'll feel something about it.
I will say the
but
Madonna choir mix, skillfully used. Also another great soundtrack on this movie.
And NSYNC.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the other thing I was saying about this movie. I already know all the cameos, and like I know all the musical moments. So like part of me feels like I've already seen the movie. Thanks, internet. I need to stay off the internet. It's my
Honestly, though, that's kind of Ryan Reynolds' fault. He has spent, if you don't want any spoilers about cameos, he's literally gone on a tear the last 2 weeks, like every day calling out somebody who starred in the movie as like a small cameo to a large cameo. So like,
yeah,
he's spoiling himself, but hey.
He hasn't waited, I would say, long enough. Like I think that used to be taken very seriously. And like the movie came out and he was like, hey, XYZ person is in it. Also like a million memes about, I'm not even going to say the character's name, but there's one character that like the day it came out, I was like, oh, I guess this character's in it because people won't shut up about him. Which, you know, again, I'm just complaining about being a person on the internet. So I probably should stop complaining.
So that's all I have.
Word. Well, before I get into my update, I want to say, because I saw a movie in the theaters recently. I saw Longlegs.
You
I didn't like it.
See Deadpool, but you
I
saw
didn't like
this.
I sure did. I saw Longlegs because it was getting a lot of buzz, and people said it was really good, and it wasn't. Don't be fooled. That's my take on Longlegs, but also part of the experience. This is going to make me sound even older and more curmudgeonly than I usually do. Have you guys noticed that the theater experience is, in terms of people being on their phones, has gotten like 900 times worse?
See, most of our theater experience is at the drive-in, so like you're in your own bubble. You control what you see.
Every single time I go to the movie theater now, there's at least one person who is just
Have you
like
looked at what they're
checking
on their phone?
Facebook in a movie.
Is it a Pokestop?
It's Facebook.
Is it a Pokestop?
No, it's like social media
They're on the Facebook
every time. They're on Facebook. It's crazy. I can't even fathom it. I just wanted to throw that out there. If you're going to the movies and you're doing that, just please stop. Anyway, saw Longlegs, didn't like it very much. I did so much. I'm just going to rapid fire a bunch of stuff here. I watched a much older movie yesterday called Training Day with Denzel Washington. Pretty good. I believe it was his first movie with Antoine Fuqua, who he's done a bunch of other movies with. Very classic cop movie that I was a big fan of. I started playing God of War Ragnarok, finally. I've had the game for a while. And I started playing it, and I'm like 2 hours in, and I'm freaking locked in, baby. It's already so good. I'm already bought fully in. I'm ready to go. Bring it on. 10 out of 10 so far. No real notes on that. Started watching The Bear. Almost done with the first season. Also loving that. The pace is a little slow right now because my wife isn't as big a fan as me, which slows my pace on shows sometimes. Not to throw her under the bus, but gonna keep watching that for sure. And I finally started reading The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle because I finished The Bullet That Missed, which is book 3 of the Thursday Murder Club. So I'm just cranking through murder mysteries right now. No end in sight. Loving life at this juncture. No further details at this time. So that was my kind of cluster F of an update. But that's what's going on in my life. So we've now reached the point in the show where we go to Quiz Town. Unbelievably, Techtic will be hosting this week because he managed to win for the first time in about a trillion years last time. So to update the quiz tracker, I'm at 10-5. I'm the top dog right now. Nerdbomber 10-6. Techtic 6-14. He's climbing that hill, baby. And good friend Steven 1-1. So Techtic, the floor is yours. I do not know what the topic is. You'll have to introduce it. And Nerdbomber and I will be fighting for the top spot.
The topic is a very popular condiment. Soy sauce trivia.
Ooh, interesting.
That is interesting.
If I
soy sauce
lose,
fan.
I'm gonna be salty.
Ha!
There you go. There you go. Soy sauce is really bad for you, by the way. I believe that's just because of how much salt is in it.
So that's
Pro tip
and we'll
before
get
we
we'll
begin.
get to that. But how many years ago was soy sauce invented?
Who goes first? Me, probably, because I'm the winner.
No, it's me because I'm actually in first place right now.
Are you?
Thank very much.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
You clearly weren't listening when I went over the records like 2 minutes ago.
I think I just like in my head, I kind of tuned you out because I'm like, I'm the winner, but I guess not.
She was number one. What's the question? Repeat the question, please.
How many years ago was soy sauce invented?
It's like 1 trillion because this has to be. We're into BC territory here. I really do think that's the case. I'm gonna say 3,500 years.
I'm gonna say 1,000 BC.
How many years ago?
Well, how many years?
Oh,
how many years
oh my
ago is that?
gosh! I'm just muffing this whole quiz thing.
She's thinking about how good she is. She's thinking about her being the best. She's not thinking about the quiz.
All right, then I'm gonna go big, and I'm gonna say 50,000 years ago. Were humans even alive? Who knows?
Boy, oh boy.
So you both severely busted. It was 2,200 years ago. It was
I
kind
feel
of
like
on
that can't be right, but
That's-
okay.
I didn't severely bust. I mean, sheesh. The Nerdbomber severely busted. I missed an opportunity to get some easy points because she said 1,000 BC, which is, by the way, about 3,000 years ago. And then she didn't want to do the math, so she just scaled up to 50,000.
You got me.
So with no points on that, I guess I accept that outcome, but I'm not happy about it.
All right. So in China, it is the most popular condiment. In 2021, how many metric tons of soy sauce was produced in China?
25,000.
Feels like a strong guess. I feel like it has to be more than that. I'm going to go ahead and use my +1 right now. I'm just going to say 25,000
Damn it.
metric tons.
That was a really good +1. The answer is 7.9 million metric tons.
Okay, so maybe I should have just, been smarter than I was, but, story of my life, right? I'll take the point.
All right. So, due to its sodium content, soy sauce can be lethal. In 2013, a man ended up in a coma after taking a dare
Coma? What
by
happened?
chugging how many ounces of soy sauce?
Okay. How many ounces of soy sauce? Just put him into a coma. First of all, sounds like a good day. 50 ounces.
No, I think it's less than that. I feel like a bottle of soy sauce is like 6, and maybe he guzzled like 3 of those. So like 18 ounces.
All right. So, Nerdbomber takes this one, and it is approximately 1 liter put him in the coma, which is equivalent to 33 U.S. fluid ounces.
Okay, so we're tied.
All right. Next question.
This is the last one, right? So effectively a tiebreaker, but not really.
This is the 4th one.
Oh.
No, this is the 4th one.
Kambishi Brewery uses the traditional fermentation method to make their soy sauce, and as such, they are one of the more pricey soy sauce bottle companies. For a 55 milliliter bottle that has been aged for 38 years, how much does it cost?
In US dollars?
In US dollars.
I'm going to say that's like a $50 bottle.
It's a strong guy. I already used my 50 number. I can't do it again. It's less than that. Just cut it in half. $25.
All right, so Nerdbomber takes this one. This is a $300 bottle of soy sauce.
Yeah, and now she has her +1 left, so she's got me. I'm plugged unless I can get this next one exactly right.
Okay, and you might. In what year was the famous Kikkoman soy sauce company involved in an animal abuse scandal?
What? What animals were they abusing?
Love this
I need
question, first of all.
information.
They were like forced guzzling them soy sauce and then cutting them open to be like, look, our stuff is safe. And they're like, you can't do your own test. PETA was saying this. You can't do your own test on animals. Can you do not a gruesome way to show that your product is safe and not butcher and force feed soy sauce to animals? That'd be great.
That's wild.
And they were like, okay, fine. And now they're doing good.
This was absolutely the 1980s. I've never felt more something in my bones than that this was the 1980s. This was 1986.
Okay, then I use my +1.
Can you say your number? Just say it.
Are you that unwilling to do math? It's 1986.1.
Say it.
1987. God.
All right, so Nerdbomber gets this one. It happened in 2015.
That's
Shut
really
the front door.
unfortunate.
Shut the front door.
I find that deeply unfortunate for all of us, and especially myself because I lost. So Nerdbomber moves to 11-6. I moved to 10-6. So therefore, Nerdbomber is now top dog, I believe. Is that how math works, or is it still me? It can't still be me. That wouldn't make any sense. So
Me now.
Nerdbomber moves into the top spot. Techtic 6-14. He remains. So a lot of sixes in the records. Thanks for hosting that, Techtic. I learned a lot about soy sauce, a lot of which I found to be, again, deeply unpleasant. But sometimes that's how it be. And we thank you, listeners, for taking this journey with us through all things movie trailer and what we've been up to and soy sauce. So if you liked what you listened to, you can head over to Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave us a review. Let us know what you thought. You can hit us up on Twitter at OnlineWarriors1. That's our main show account. We also have @OW Techtic, @OW Nerdbomber, and @OW Illeagle86. That's me. Hit us up there. Let us know what you thought of our opinions, about our personalities, about our interests. I don't know. Just have a conversation with us. We're there. We're ready for it. Hit us up in all those spots. And in the meantime, stay safe and keep on podcasting.